My regular viewers already know that all you need to say is Baz Luhrmann, and you have my attention.
There's been a lot written and a lot said, but never from my side of the story.
Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve, and on my channel I talk about entertainment media. If you've been around here for long enough, you will already know how much I love Baz Luhrmann's Elvis film. I reviewed it when it came out, and then I went a step further by doing an entire video essay on it because of how hyper-fixated I was on that film. I saw it 18 times at the cinema. Support your local cinema. Get a monthly movie pass for whatever option is best for you in your particular location. I knew I needed to review Baz's new concert film / documentary of Elvis Presley when I saw him explain in an interview that part of the funding received for making the Elvis film was used to send researchers down into the salt mine archives to unearth what amounts to never-before-seen footage of Elvis. Now, when I say never-before-seen, I would assume that, of course, the people who were there would have had that first-hand memory of the rehearsals, shows, and social gatherings that were seen in this new film, and also anyone involved with the initial filming of that footage might have gone over it at some point, but for the most part, much of what's being shown in this film is something that the broader movie viewing masses of 2026 would not have seen before.
During the making of Elvis the movie, I'd heard about these mythical reels. I had the finances to send someone literally into the salt mines in Kansas City. They go down, you know, it was a bit Raiders of the Lost Ark. Guy kicks the door in, 60 reels. I can't remember how many hours, like 50 hours or something, of negative.
Amazing.
And anamorphic 35 from the Vegas shows, 16 mil from the tours, and we get the 8 mil as well. It took 2 years to go and find the sound sources. It's him on stage singing, it's the band, sometimes, and Ronnie Tutt drumming, a phenomena, you know, James Burton phenomena, but sometimes orchestra and mainly the suites, but sometimes the miking wasn't strong enough to do 5-1. So we've done, that's why we made it a kind of, John O'Redman and I, my creative partner, made it kind of like a dreamscape experience, yeah.
Though I will say that as someone who saw Elvis 18 times at the cinema, because when I click with a film, I will rewatch it at the cinema as many times as I please, there were multiple instances of me observing these small snippets of 3 seconds or so in this new film, and I would recognize those snippets fairly quickly, if not immediately, as something that was used at any number of points in that 2022 film. Baz Luhrmann has proven he's the supreme art historian of our time. EPiC is the ultimate love letter to not only Elvis Presley, but to the restoration and preservation of art itself. I saw a fairly alarming post recently, I don't remember where, otherwise I would have linked it for you, but it was talking about how a significant portion of the first films that were ever made are now lost or have been destroyed. And that's a significant loss of both art and history. Even if some of those films weren't very good, we should have access to see them in order to better study and understand the evolution of film as an art form, the ways that film intersects with the larger cultural ongoings of that particular time period. Baz Luhrmann, as a filmmaker, takes ages to release a new feature film, and part of the reason for that is because he goes and disappears into a research hole for whatever new thing he's planning to make. When was the last time Baz Luhrmann had a new theatrical release? Elvis, in 2022. Now, since then he has had Faraway Downs as a streaming release in 2023, and that was a restoration of his 2008 film Australia, specifically to put a lot of the indigenous material back into the story the way that he had always intended. It consists of material that was already filmed, but simply didn't make it into the theatrical cut during its original release. He also added more music into the restoration series, music by indigenous artists, because the thing about Baz Luhrmann is that he doesn't do things halfway. And now we have this Elvis concert film documentary, which is releasing in cinemas in 2026, but that's still not a new Baz Luhrmann feature film. The next Baz Luhrmann feature film is a Joan of Arc film. Now, when is that releasing? 2027, 2028? It'll be a while. And do you know why it's taking that long? Because he's probably been off the grid somewhere researching France in the 1400s. Well, probably also England in the 1400s. I'm not going to go on an entire tangent about the 100 Years' War, but I have read 2 history books thus far on Joan of Arc, specifically with the purpose of preparing for Baz Luhrmann's new film. And I've also been reading other history books in general. The most recent one was Richmond Unchained by Luke G. Williams. And at the end of that book, the author spoke about how he had spent a solid decade or so doing the research to be able to write that book. In an age where history and art are being devalued and degraded, there's a lack of funding for them, there are tech bros infiltrating the entertainment industry and poisoning it with their environmentally toxic and artistically bankrupt AI, it's so refreshing to go to the cinema and see what amounts to a giant footnote for a historical project like the Elvis film, which was released in 2022. It's evidence of how much time and labor was spent to ensure that proper research was done into the subject of that film. And the fact that there was so much material readily available afterwards, well, why not release it as a concert film? It's the perfect companion piece to a feature film that I already love. And there is an artistic synergy between these two films. This new concert film documentary opens in more or less the exact same way that the feature film did. You have Elvis Presley in his blue outfit singing Glory, Glory, Hallelujah. And seeing the concert footage play out in full of these musical numbers, which were showed in rapid musical montages in that feature film, it was just reigniting all of the rage I felt when Austin Butler was robbed of his Oscar. I was over it. I do need to make that clear. I really was. I don't think much about award shows nowadays because that's not my responsibility. I only have to do the work of reviewing and discussing the art itself here on my channel. I like how the entirety of this new film amounts to Elvis Presley in his own words. Conceptually, it's almost reminiscent of the David Bowie documentary that had come out a couple of years ago. Instead of having other people come in to speak about their knowledge of the primary subject of the film, it's that person speaking for themselves. And there are two primary things that this new film is showing about Elvis: his skills as a showman and his silly, whimsical personality. Now, that's not to be reductive, but those are definitely the two major qualities that cover the vast majority of what it is that you're seeing. There's an exceptional skill set on display of a showman that would help explain how he was able to do so many shows to such a high standard, win over so much adulation in yet another era of his career. We would do well to keep in mind how often music artists don't have longevity in their careers, but he was someone that did. And the goofy personality in particular was something that was not as emphasized in the feature film, but I would make the argument that including that type of playfulness wouldn't have suited the journey of that film's dramatic narrative. Because that wasn't just a film about Elvis, it was also a film about the history, culture, and politics of the time periods covered in the story, and it's also a cautionary tale and a scathing indictment of this recurring dynamic in the music industry of predatory snowmen bleeding artists dry. And Baz Luhrmann is no stranger to doing operatic tragedy, so of course he was the perfect choice to tell Elvis's story and blend that propensity for tragedy with the real-life history of Elvis Presley. If you had disrupted the dramatic tension and momentum of the story in the feature film to have a 10-minute performance from Elvis Presley where he's joking around with his musicians and his backup singers, it would have resulted in something that was tonally confused. But documentaries are a medium where you have a different kind of freedom to linger in other corners of the history of something for longer if you choose to do so. And there were other parallels between this documentary and the feature film, like that incredibly theatrical way of reiterating what was conveyed with so much emphasis in the feature film. Colonel Tom Parker is an evil parasite. This new film, having this flash of the camera and the way that it created this demonic flare in Parker's eyes, Diablo. I could have thrown a shoe. That was the visceral emotional response I had to seeing him. And it's not that this new concert film documentary is going to explain all of the details of how Parker scammed Elvis. More of that was elaborated on in the feature film. But again, like I said, this is a good companion piece. There is synergy between these two projects. When they displayed the text at the end of this new film and said that Elvis never performed outside of the States, the feature film elaborated on that within its dramatic narrative. When this new documentary is playing audio of Elvis saying that he doesn't know the details of the money from the merchandising, that should ring alarm bells to anyone that is either an Elvis Presley historian or Someone who saw Baz Luhrmann's 2022 feature film 18 times at the cinema. Hello, it's me. And there was a mention in the feature film about him liking an array of genres and artists, including the Beatles, and guess what? This concert film documentary shows Elvis rehearsing and performing songs by the Beatles, and him saying that the lyrics, "Something in the way she moves," is very suggestive lyrics, man. I was trying really hard not to snicker because what happened to 1950s Elvis, shaking the status quo to the bone with his hip shaking? That's what happens when you age out of being part of the revolutionary youth, now isn't it? But there was this other moment where he said on stage, "Yes, Kirk," when his mic had feedback. Are you telling me that Elvis Presley watched Star Trek? Because that's new trivia to me. I'm not an Elvis historian. I did get excited and had to suppress the urge to sit up and start pointing at the screen every time Sammy Davis Jr. was there. And just when I thought he was going to simply be a celebrity cameo in the audience, they went and showed the two of them chatting together after the show. Oh, what fun. The restoration of this film was immaculate, as was the audio mixing. The way that they were bouncing around from rehearsals to different performances of the same song, and it was so seamless every time. Again, I have to reiterate that there is a real synergy between this new film and the feature film from a few years ago, but also, that's just that Baz Luhrmann movie-making magic. He's always had an incredibly musical sensibility to his filmmaking style. He was inspired by the MGM musicals. Austin Butler likened Baz's filmmaking style to jazz. All of those things are just as evident in this new concert film documentary as it is in Baz's feature filmography. For all of the reasons I've already stated of art history and the preservation and restoration of it, making that more of a priority and supporting that, these things are extremely important. But also, considering that we're living under the plague of late-stage capitalism when seeing live concerts has become increasingly difficult to do because of evil companies like Live Nation, Ticketmaster, and whatnot, seeing a great concert film like this is the closest I'm inclined to be nowadays to going to concerts again. And the incredible work that Baz has done with his team made it to where seeing this in IMAX was a real treat. It really felt like I was watching a phenomenal live show. It's the music and showmanship of this performer, but also all of the idiosyncrasies of watching people performing live, joking around with their fellow musicians on stage, and making them laugh just because you're a very goofy guy. Between this and the Billie Eilish concert film that's coming out in a couple of months from now, and that's a film with James Cameron involved, my favorite filmmakers are not only gifting me phenomenal feature films, but concerts to watch on the big screen too. If you would like to support art history, the preservation and restoration of historical archives, if you want to experience a concert in general, or for Elvis Presley specifically, go see Elvis Presley in concert. IMAX if it's available. Baz Luhrmann, you've done it again. Let us know when the Joan of Arc movie is ready. I still have at least 3 more library books to read about her from my local library.